I think the really cool thing for a basketball nerd is to see how Sakuragi is kind of like a little Easter egg modeled after Dennis Rodman. Hey everybody, my name is Nick and I'm a director living in Taiwan, and today I'm going to talk about the movie The First Slam Dunk, directed by Takehiko Inoue. The First Slam Dunk is based on a manga, a popular manga, which is comic book in Japan, and it was also a TV show, is that right?
Yes.
I just want to bring up something that I think is pretty interesting. I think a lot of people kind of look down on anime where they think that it can't be high art. And I'm here to tell you that this movie, The First Slam Dunk, is cinema with a capital C. This is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. It is definitely high art. If I could have it win an Oscar, I would definitely do that. I mean, this movie is fantastic in every category, in every way. Very moving, very beautiful filmmaking. It's just that freaking good. 5 stars, 10 stars, 20 stars. A couple of reasons I think why I was so surprised that I liked this movie as much as I did. One, it's a sports movie, and sports movies are very formulaic. You know, it can only go one way. They win or they lose. Another thing is that I maybe have this prejudice about animation in that I feel like animation kind of limits itself in what it can do filmically. You know, it's Pixar movies, for example, are always kind of similar. They're good to me, but they're not anything that's like amazing or groundbreaking. And I kind of thought that this would be the same, but no, I was wrong. What ways is this movie so amazing to me? Well, the first, and where every good film starts, is the story and the script and the way that it's structured. This film is based around a state championship game that this team is playing. Then within this game, which goes on for the whole movie, we get flashbacks centered around Ryota Miyagi, who is the point guard for the team. Ryota had a father who died when he was young. His older brother was the one who tried to kind of become the, as he says, the captain of the family, and kind of takes on the burden that the father left behind. But then that older brother also dies, tragically. Ryoto, who looks up to him and wants to be like him in every way, because his older brother was a basketball player, we see that this is the reason why Ryoto wants to play basketball, because he wants to try to fill in the shoes of his older brother. As we go through the movie, we realize that his obsession with basketball is more about trying to become his older brother so that he can be the one that takes care of his family. Like, I'm gonna cry. Oh, see, that movie made me cry. So he can be the one who takes care of his mother, just like his brother was supposed to do. And the way they handle and explore kind of the complex emotions of him trying to live in the shadow of his dead brother, and it's really heartbreaking. And woo, cry break. I can't do it. This movie's so emotional. Okay. So if he can be good at basketball like his brother, then he can take care of his mother like his brother was supposed to do. And you might be kind of thinking like, well, this guy's weird. Why is he? This is kind of a standard story. I feel like this, you kind of see this a lot. And actually, Sonia asked me while I was watching the movie, like, why is it so good? Like, a lot of movies have this kind of dead brother or dead family member story, but what's so good about this story? Even though a lot of movies kind of revolve around these tragic elements, I think this movie really nailed the complex feelings that come with it. They explore this idea of survivor's guilt really well. Like this feeling that Ryoto has that that his mother probably wishes that, this feeling that he has that he thinks his mother wishes that he was the one that died and not his older brother, which is I think a feeling that a lot of people have when they lose somebody, because they feel guilty that they're the one who lived. And the person that died kind of takes on this kind of perfect status. They can never do anything wrong because they're not around anymore. And we don't just get his perspective on it, we also get the mother's side, where she maybe just wants to forget about the older brother. She doesn't want to keep being reminded about him. But because Ryoto is trying to fill the shoes of the older brother by playing basketball, she is constantly being reminded of him. And so she gets angry at him and she wants him to stop playing basketball. And it's just this really tragic kind of emotional dynamic between these two characters of this mother and this son, who both of them are trying to connect with their dead brother, but they are unable to connect with each other. And the thing that's so perfect about the movie is that it has this emotional story, but that's not all that it's about. It's woven into this really exciting, fun basketball game. So the movie really drags you through this whole kind of set of emotions where you're following the game and it's super exciting and you're hyped up and you're ready to go, and then it flashes back and it brings you into this really emotional story that is connected to the game. It gives this character the motivation that he needs to play this game, and you realize that it's not just about the game, it's about his whole life and about his self-worth and about everything leading up to it. So it's just everything that a good sports movie should be. This movie, it tackles it in a great way. Another thing is that the technical elements of the film that go into creating this story are also very fantastic. I don't typically notice editing in an animated film, but the way that this movie is edited is so artful and almost experimental at times. There's a scene where he's on a motorcycle and he's remembering his brother, and it's like flashing back in this really interesting way that is just straight out of one of the best art films you've ever seen. They handle a flashback with him kind of going back in time and doing the thing that he wished he had done. It's very arty, the way that they show these kind of interesting flashbacks and the way that they cut scenes together and have them replay, but in a different way. Very complex and not something you would expect from like a cartoon, which you typically think is going to be very simple because, cartoons are for kids or whatever. The production design, I'm not sure if you call it production design if it's drawn for a cartoon, but like the props and the sets and the way that they kind of designed the spaces is also really interesting. Like little details stuck out to me, like when he's in his brother's room and there's a sticker on the dresser, or all the different kind of NBA magazines or actually basketball team magazines that his brother collected, and his trophies and stuff, and how he goes into the space and he interacts with these things because that's what's left of his brother, is just really perfectly done. And it also ties back to this theme of loss, about how when somebody leaves you, all that's left are these items, and that's all that you have to connect with. And so they get this weird status, like the mom wants to get rid of them and hide them and put them away, and the brother wants to take them and use them for himself. The armband being a particularly emotional element that's used in this way. Some other really awesome things in this movie are the music. There's this really sad score that works really well for the emotional flashback scenes, but then when it's the game, there's this really great Japanese rock music. And Japanese rock is just so good and so like propelling and hypes you up so much. It's just fantastic. When it cuts from the first flashback into like the beginning of the game and they're showing the intro of like the opposing team coming, that music that gets you started, you're just so ready to start this movie. It's so good, and it's just like the perfect hype up music. And they also do really interesting things with the sound design. I'm thinking particularly of the ending of the movie, the final basket of the game. The way they use sound in that scene is so perfect. And the way that they I don't want to go too much into it, but let's just say that they take out elements of sound and put back elements of sound in a really fantastic, exciting way that is, like I said, it's all very high level, all very arty, masterfully technical stuff. So we have this sad stuff, we also have this exciting basketball game, and then we also have a lot of comedy in the movie. It's actually also very funny. The comedic elements are interesting because I think comedy in Japanese films is a little different than in like a Western sports movie. I think the comedy in a Western movie would be maybe the character, like a cool character being sarcastic and saying really smart, witty things, making fun of the other team, is something that I've seen a lot. But in this, I think the joke is that, what's the guy's name? Sakuragi? Sakuragi is kind of a buffoon. He's like a clown almost. He's like kind of an idiot. And that's what's funny about it. Even though he's like the hero, he's also like the best. He's the genius player, but he's also such an idiot, and he's always talking about how great he is and boasting in a way, and then he'll like do something stupid like double dribble, which is it's just really funny. Or he like gets injured, and he's always like, the way that he like is like injured and the way that he moves is very comedic and clownish. So it's a little bit over the top. So I think for a Western audience, that takes a little bit of time to kind of get into that rhythm, because we're not expecting that. We're expecting our hero characters to be super witty and cool, but there's like a clownish element that I think takes a minute to get into if you're a Westerner. But once you kind of tap into that comedy, it's so good, it's so funny. And it really helps with the emotional weight of the movie. So you have this emotional stuff where you cry, and then you also have this really laugh out loud, funny, goofy, just fun stuff of people acting like idiots, which is great. For basketball fans, even though maybe some of the stuff is like not exactly right, I think they do so much right that doesn't matter. Like the way that the action is drawn and shown, the game is like, you're watching a basketball game, you know? Maybe they add in some extra space, the shot clock doesn't match, they have way too much time to dribble or whatever, but the way they do it is so perfect, and like a lot of the movements and emotions are so well done that I think any basketball fan would really get a kick out of this movie. And in particular, I think the really cool thing for a basketball nerd is to see how Sakuragi is kind of like a little Easter egg modeled after Dennis Rodman. And you see it most obviously in his hair, is like the Rodman hair, but even in a ton more details for somebody who's really into that era of basketball, I think they could find a bunch of similarities. Like for me, I even noticed the way that he jumps and catches rebounds. That's exactly how Rodman played. The way that Rodman would dive out of bounds for loose balls is exactly what Rodman did. I remember there's stories about how Rodman would, when he was waiting for a rebound, would kind of pull down on the shirt in a way that refs couldn't see. They do that. They do all these little cool kind of inside little stories about Rodman and make this character very similar to Rodman. And so if you're a basketball fan, I think you get a kick out of kind of finding all that other stuff. And I imagine all the other characters are based on other basketball players too. I heard that the team that they're playing, their jersey and the way that they are is a little bit like the San Antonio Spurs. So that's pretty cool. All in all, I would say this movie is almost perfect, and you don't need to have followed the comic. I hadn't seen any of the comic. You don't need to follow any of that to get it. You can go into it not knowing anything and watch it and freaking love it like I did. And maybe even like it more if you don't know anything, because Sonia, you followed the comic, and there's some stuff that you thought wasn't good because maybe you'd seen the comic and it wasn't right. Is that true? Yeah. Oh, so the 3D, 2D difference you didn't like. Like you prefer it to be 2D? Okay. Okay, so if you watched the TV show, maybe you're more used to it being in 2D rather than 3D. I didn't have that expectation, so I was fine with it. Fantastic, must-see movie. I would say this is a movie you have to see in a theater too. It's so fun to watch in a theater. Really exciting, really immersive. And just centering it around a single game is just so brilliant and perfect. And yeah, I don't have enough good things to say about it. Go see it, go tell your friends, have a blast, enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time. If you want me to review anything, let me know in the comments, and talk to y'all later.